LinkedIn Live. I love doing this every day. I meet so many wonderful people and get so much great insight and feedback. Feel free, chat's on. Love to recognize you and bring you on the show. I can't tell you how excited I am to have Jenny Maxwell with us again. And we had a little brief conversation and really focused on what you can do to get beyond where you're at, break through a plateau or a barrier. And it really comes down, in our opinion, to mindset. And Jenny had some wonderful thoughts on how people sabotage themselves through what they think, do, or what other factors, because there's a million reasons a person can justify losing, but very few that can't speak for winning itself. So, Jenny, what a great introduction. Great to have you. Why don't you give us a little bit about yourself really quick and then talk about sabotage?
Well, thanks again for having me on, Don. I love coming on and chatting with you. We always have a good time. And my name is Jenny Maxwell, and I'm originally from Dublin in Ireland, and I currently live in Chicago with my husband and my two boys. And this time of year, every year, Don, I question my sanity. Of all of the places that we could have moved to, why Chicago? Because in the winter, it is so cold. you know? And to speak really about mindset and sabotage and how we get in our own way, I would love to lead with an example of how this is applicable to me. So we had a birthday in this house yesterday, and my son was playing pep band for the basketball team last night. So we decided that we'd have the birthday cake after the game, which was 9 p.m. Now, and as much as I wanted a piece of cake and a cup of tea, I knew probably not going to sleep very well tonight, having sugar and a hot tea before I go to bed. And guess what? I made the decision to have it anyway, in the spirit of the moment. And I didn't sleep last night, so I woke up groggy. And I woke up and I thought, I could really beat myself up over this, or I could be a little gentle. Right? Because we don't graduate from being a human being. And sometimes we want to have something that may get in our way in the future. And it's okay to recognize that. I actually personally enjoy a little bit of sabotage because it's a reminder of what I no longer want to be experiencing. Now that's with food and the time of day that we eat food, right? But it could be for anything. It could actually be for anything. And when we spoke, that's my dog making noise under the desk. If you can hear it, I don't know. He's sabotaging the sound. But with mindset, I think what's true so often is that we tell ourselves little stories. And that's how we get in our own way, And a lot of it comes down, for most people, I think it's fear of failure. And they'll sabotage progress because they're afraid to get something wrong, or they have a limiting belief, or they are carrying self-doubt. What do you think about that, Don?
I think that it makes perfect sense. As we were talking earlier, there's so many ways people can justify losing, and most of them don't relate to self-accountability. It applies to a situation, a person, a whatever it is that told them what they are when it really wasn't what it had to be. So you can believe wherever you are is where you are. The question one has to look at, does it serve you today? And will it serve you tomorrow? And how much can you afford to take legacy into the future with you and drag it around? And to me, it's really how responsive you are to your environment. Wherever you start doesn't matter. Starting is more important than where you start. But once you start learning, start changing, start asking. LinkedIn has polling. People that sit there at night and scratch their head and say, gosh, I got to figure this out. I don't know what to do, or I don't know if it's this or that. Well, how much do you trust whoever you've built your network with?
Yes.
right? To share, hey, everyone, I've been up all night. I can't figure this out. Does anybody have anything that they can help me with, right?
Mm-hmm.
On my polls, I get about 100 minimum answers, right? And some of them are relevant. But here's the thing. I'm now one of 50 instead of one of 100% of me. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
small part of something bigger, and everybody then shares whatever they're going through. So if someone says, I'm there, I don't know how to fix it, you've got company. That by itself has value. The people say, I've been there, here's what I did, and it was easy. Why don't you try it? Now all of a sudden give somebody an off ramp from that track they've been on and can't get off on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other thing. What's easy to do is easy not to do. And doing the opposite is just as easy as doing what you're doing if what you're doing isn't working. Right? So it's the element of allowing yourself to change, not worrying about what the change will bring, just that you're changeable.
Right. People can stay stuck for that reason, though, and that is a big fear of change. And that can come back to love, safety, and belonging, right? What might happen if I start to change here? What might happen in my circle of friends if I suddenly start experiencing success? What might happen in my relationships if I suddenly am living my healthiest self and not everybody else is doing this? Will I still belong? And that plays a huge part in why people stay where they are. It's to belong with whoever is closest with them. I see that all of the time. And I'm curious about something when you touched on a belief system a few minutes ago. And I would love to invite the listeners today to have a little look inward and ask yourself, when you hear yourself saying things like, I don't think I can do that, or I am such a way, or I do things this, or whatever the case may be, allow yourself a moment to consider whose voice that is. Was this something that you were told as a child? And are you carrying it to this point in your life? And is it no longer serving you? Because as you say, you can update your beliefs. You can create change at any time in your life. And it doesn't have to be challenging. It's all in your mindset. It's trading judgment for curiosity and making way for empathy, right? So if you were told something as a little person, what good intention did that grown up around you have for you? Did they want you to do better at school? Did they want you to finish your dinner? Did they want you to be responsible and accountable for cleaning your room? But they're all really basic things, but they're the stories that we grow up with.
Mm-hmm.
And then we take them with us and they form behaviors and habits, which can totally get in our way and feed into self-doubt. But the beautiful part is that you can always update your belief system, for sure. And if, that will get you from where you are to where you want to be if you decide to make that choice. And it does come back to choice.
Yeah, that's an excellent way of portraying it. And it's really a matter of, are people looking ahead or looking back? Are people wanting to go ahead or go back? And most people who are stuck are usually with stuck people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's why everybody eats pizza and drinks beer and watch football on Sunday if that's who you hang out with, right? That's just what you're going to do if you're with that group. But here's the thing. If you have the courage to have the curiosity to just know it's a peak, right? You can always go back to the tent. You don't have to look over the flap to see what's out there. But I think two things one should measure against is a happiness quotient, and that's key. If someone says, living your life the way you are, how happy are you? And if you say, I bounce out of bed every day, I can't wait to see the sunrise, you shouldn't change a thing, right? Because whatever you can improve, you'll take out a balance. And if you're happy, it's a rarity and you're excited, stay there as long as you can. Now, the question is how many people are in that position? And I don't meet very many, right? I meet people who are running out of time, running out of money, running out of patience, and don't have a way to fill up, right? So they're looking at their gas gauge, keep going down, and they know
Mhm.
eventually they've got to fill up. And the answer is, in this day and age, in my opinion, everything is too much for any one person, no matter who they are or what they're into. And as soon as you lock arms with others who are in the same boat and have the same desire to get to the other side and are happy to have others along with them to help them as well as be helped, that's where you start to get away from yourself, because now
Mhm.
you've got an excuse. Well, Jim and Jerry, and they're doing it and they say it's easy and I could do it and they tell me it's no problem. That's enough of a bridge to say, okay, take my hand. What do I got to lose? Right? And that
Yes.
happiness quotient will come back and say, you're so miserable. What do you got to lose? You know?
Or what have I got to gain?
Or hey,
Unfortunately, so
here,
many people are so stuck on that. What might I lose if I versus what might I gain if I?
yeah, but here's the thing. If you're with this group of people and that's all you know and that's all you get to know, you work within that group. But if all of a sudden a new group shows up and invites you in and you get to experience, it's so much easier to leave the old group.
Well, what if you didn't have to leave them? What if it just changes shape?
Well, it's all a matter of making little steps
Mhm.
consistently over time. And that's the bigger thing. Don't look at someone says, I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, it's not going to happen in a day. I don't
Mhm.
care what you do. And as long as it happens, you're going to continue to feel better along the way,
Mhm.
enjoy the ride, have control over things, right? And at that point, it's like people say, here's a book that's 300 pages. Why don't you read it? And someone says, I never have enough time to read a 300-page book. But if someone says, hey, read a page at night before
Mhm.
you go to bed, one page, it'll take you a minute. And you say, I can do a page. But you'll be reading 2, 3 books that year
Mhm.
by just adding that page. So I think what people have to understand is whatever it is you're dealing with took a while or something to get to that point. It's not going to go away any sooner in a sense, because you
Mhm.
have to it's like building a house, you know where the bricks are. You take them down just like you brought them up,
Mhm.
and then you redo it. And that's the beauty of reinvention, is that you get to model yourself today. And you're right. When you look back and say, when I was 7 years old and I dropped that pitcher and everybody just screamed at me,
Mhm.
right? And I just freaked out and I still remember that, right? But you
Mhm.
know what I say to myself? If you came back then as you are today, you would have thanked everybody for just being in the room with you, right? So it was only because you were at that age, had that experience, and really couldn't get comfortable with it that you carried it forward. But you're a different person now.
Yeah, it's easier said than done for some people.
Well,
That change. Yeah.
that's where coaching comes in.
Mhm.
That's where community comes in. It's all
Yes.
available. Everybody goes through pretty much the same thing as everybody else, just at different times and different magnitudes. And there's a saying, it's not how many times you fall down, it's how fast you get up, right? And that's really the key to everything. It's understanding, hey, I'm not where I want to be. How do I
Mhm.
get there?
I agree. It's perfectly okay to change your expectations of yourself. And it's even more okay to reset your boundaries. And now is a great time of year to do that, because when it comes to expectation and Christmas time, people tend to go, I really hope this person is nice in this situation, or whatever the case may be. But the truth is, we know that this person that we've known all our lives are going to show up likely exactly the way they have always shown up. So you have an unrealistic expectation of what this person is going to bring to the table. So if you change the expectation of yourself and you decide to reset your boundaries, it kind of takes the pressure off.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like wishing and hoping that somebody else can change, you can apply the change to yourself. Well, how do I intend to show up? How might I react when I know this person is going to show up at the table and bring themselves? Because that's what they've always done. So changing the expectation of yourself and resetting your boundaries, deciding who you want to give your energy to and what you want to give your energy to, and also telling yourself a story of, okay, if I can hold on to my energy, what might I use it for to move me forward towards something for me? So we don't have to cut people out of our lives. We don't have to leave groups unless they're entirely toxic. But we can reset our boundaries and make a decision. How much energy do I want to give this person or this group? How confident am I in myself? How about I update my belief system and take it from there? What do you think about that?
That's so many excellent insights and perspectives, especially going into the holiday season where there's going to be so much hospitality and maybe people showing up you haven't seen in a while. And I think all you can control is yourself. And maybe if you go into those situations with the intent that here's what I'm going to try to achieve for myself, right? That I'm not going to get caught up in that. I mean, I had relatives where for a long time you tried to be honest with them, but you found out honesty didn't pay. Because it will always create then this dynamic that at the end you would have said, I should have known better, because I know when I get into this, if you fast forward, what the result is, and maybe we can take an off ramp here, or I can just decide I'm going to do everything I can not to spend time with that person,
Yeah.
and that way I eliminate the opportunities. And now at the end of the day, you can go back just like with LinkedIn and say, well, how did I do?
Yes. Oh, reflection is beautiful.
Yeah. Am I proud of, hey, I didn't have a fight this week. They didn't overdrink. I mean, whatever it was that in the past has really made you upset about what could have been a great opportunity for family and friendship. Now you can say, I did something. And, if you can then duplicate that through others, right? To say, hey, why don't you just do something, think about doing something a little bit differently and not tell people what to do. But let's make this a day of reinvention, right? Let's bring something to the party we haven't, right? Bring a song, bring a story, bring something, one more thing, and 10, 12 people bringing something together. And now you have an event. At Thanksgiving, everybody says, what are we thankful for? And it's so sweet when it goes around the table and the kids get to it, because that's what makes it thankful in a sense. So, you create your own environment, you create your own opportunity, you definitely create your own mindset. And, I think the reason why people aren't happy with others or more progressive is they're not happy with themselves or more progressive.
Agreed.
Once you love yourself, once you're so excited to hear, see, and be yourself, right? At that point, nothing bothers you. Everything that rejects you, you look as a regift. Well, thank you, because I know somebody who really does appreciate it, really will want it. It'll make me feel better working with somebody who honors in a certain way. So, a lot of these things are old-fashioned, old school, but they're still as relevant as today because that's how you touch people.
I agree. I think I invite my clients to speak to themselves as if they were speaking to their best friend. Because we're so much gentler with other people and we forget that the friendship starts with ourselves and actually liking ourselves and self-love, self-care, self-belief, self-acceptance. And when you can step into that and look inward, you can become the energy you want to attract. So when you go into a large group of people and you're confident in yourself and you are secure in yourself and you know who you are, you can attract people with the same energy and repel people who are toxic. And it's really that simple, but it starts with self-love and self-belief and being a little kind and gentle with how you speak to yourself. No more shaming. I should have done this, or I could have done that, or why did I do this to myself? That's all shaming yourself. Instead, like I'm all about trading judgment for curiosity, because it really does make way for empathy. What might I have done differently if I could have a redo is much gentler than I should have done that. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Another thing is you wouldn't fail as much if you didn't try as much. And, every time I go in to do something, I believe I'm right. And I find out half the time I wasn't, but I never knew which half. But it's okay, because it's like not saying it didn't happen, but forgiving yourself, knowing it's human, knowing you're flawed, knowing you're capable of not doing everything all the time 100%,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
once you say that's who I am, then when it happens, it's like, oh, what a surprise, what a disappointment, what a frustration, because everything that's happened has happened. You can't change it. You can think about it. You can talk about it. You can be ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
You may never forgive yourself for it. When people say, I could never forgive myself for that, it's like, why not? Who else is going to forgive you if not you? And then by the same token, everything you've given shouldn't be considered anything more for the future either, right? It should have been
Yeah,
time
I
given
know.
and the benefit, but they owe me, and all of a sudden you got
Yeah.
this ledger going on where you owe somebody that you can never repay. They owe you something you're never going to get paid. And you're sitting in this quagmire of purgatory, which is you have no now.
Right.
All that stuff is now converged. And even during significant tragedy, I realize I'm not going to get over it overnight, so why try?
Mm.
Right? If it's going to take me years, then give it years, and allow it. And don't make the responsibility yours, because I think the key is you got to stay free. You got to stay available. You got to stay open. You got to stay active. You can't be doing that stuff when you're in an alley beating yourself up every day.
You're getting in your own way.
Yeah. And the thing is, if it was just you, that'd be selfish enough to waste your life. But everybody around you feels it and sees it too.
Yeah, that's
Right?
the truth. So you're
You
getting
see
a lesser version of the one you want to give, for sure.
yeah, if you ever see your kids walking around, they're angry and they're frustrated or disappointment and whatever, and you wish you could just take it off of their shoulders, versus when they come home and they're so excited, they're so positive, they're so healthy, that inspires you. It encourages you.
I
And I'm
think that's
Go ahead.
that's an interesting way to. I'm glad you brought that up, because there is a great way to lead by example. So my teenager usually comes out of school in a not very good mood, and I know this, so I expect it. Right? Now, if he comes out very happy, I'm delighted. But I have realistic expectations that by the end of the day, having been up at 5:45 in the morning, that he's tired and grumpy and doesn't want to talk about school. So I avoid asking, how was your day? Because I know that's a layup to him complaining and dumping all over me and everything that's gone wrong. So instead, I pick out his favorite teacher and I ask, how did it go with Mr. today?
Mhm.
And he'd say, oh my gosh, it was so fun. And we did this, and it's music. He loves music. So he plays jazz and concert band. So he has this teacher twice. So I knew I was on a winner when he told me the first day of school how much he loved this guy. So I ask him that. And that shifts his energy and shifts his mindset towards all of the good things that happened. And I like to apply that with him anywhere in the day that he shows up grumpy or angry or complaining about something. And I empower him to make the change. So I don't suggest to him, why don't you focus on something positive? Well, he doesn't know how to do that because he's in an angry state. Instead, I invite him to shift how he's thinking towards something positive, and that keeps the momentum going. It's like a snowball effect, because then I can ask how lunch was. And these are all like really basic examples, but you can pretty much do that with anybody, versus why are you so moody? Why are you always in a bad mood? And then the person feels really guarded and they feel like they've got to explain themselves in some way, versus what would you like instead? I'm sorry that's happening to you, or I'm sorry this happened that way, or somebody treated you this way. What would you like instead? And they'd say, well, I prefer to be this way. And they start thinking along that line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the thing is you're the proactive person, like I try to be with my family, because I'm actually happier when everybody's happier. When everybody's safe and everybody's happy. And I always shift conversations when I know, again, where they're going or how they're going to end up, because then it's easier to switch to food, right? Because everybody needs a treat, and I know what everybody's favorite is. I mean, I'm not trying to overfeed people, but it's like sometimes if you just had a nice ice cream and sat down, and what I believe in is community, because one rule I had my own business for 37 years, and it was tremendous. I never missed a dinner. I always believed that was the best time for everybody to be together. And one more thing, which goes against working 80 hours a week, I never went to work until I got my kids to school.
Oh, I love that.
Because I had that conversation 10 or 15 minutes before they went to school. And when my boy was younger, I'd shoot baskets for a while before I took him to school. And you have all these times. And when people are around each other, they see each other, they hear each other, they feel each other, they're part of something. And you want to reinforce the overriding value, not what'd you get in algebra this week?
Yeah.
Right? Or how much money did you make when you did that? Because everybody's looking for results before they get people ready for the race. Some of these kids and just kids, you can qualify as being 80 years old too, because in coaching, you're dealing with the same type of mentalities. You got to make people know you're the safe harbor. Right? I tell my kids, no matter what you do, I'll always love you. I mean, I might not like you at times, but I'll always be there for you, because it's the way it is. And when people know they've got that behind them, right? That no one's judging them, no one's criticizing them, no one's punishing them. One person came up to me, this lady, and I had a lot of respect for her, and she had some interesting kids. And I said, do you ever punish your kids? Because I never could understand it. And she said, why would I punish my kids? Doesn't that seem punish? Teach, motivate, inspire. I would never punish. What is that message? And I think people have to understand they have to be to others what they'd want to be done from others. And keep doing it, knowing most of it's going to either fall on deaf ears or may not get the right response, but you will get enough right response to build from. Right? And as your message gets clearer based on what's working, and that's what we were talking about earlier, the only thing I care about is what do you do and what do you get when you do it, right? And the one day this happens, that happens, and everything happens. I've been around a lot of days. I haven't seen it happen like that, But what I do say is if you're not getting results, change. I look at almost like a wardrobe. How many times do you say, well, I'm going to wear this based on where I'm going, right? If you're going to the beach, if you're going to a cocktail party or whatever it is, in business or just showing up with people, you got to have the right wardrobe on based on the setting you're moving into.
Yeah.
Right? You've got to be all confidence, because you can't expect someone who you're looking to help you get confident enough to help them. Right?
Well, you can only take your clients as far as you are willing to go yourself.
Yeah, and that's where honesty is so important. And some people don't want to hear what you have to say, but they need to hear it because it's true, is your expectations are too high and your commitment's too low, is usually the reason that disqualifies people from moving forward. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die, and it's the same thing for a lot of people.
Well, when it comes back to energy, Don, the way I look at it is this. If people want to work with me, then they're going to show up and expect me to hold up the mirror for them, because that's what they're paying me for, right? They're not coming to me looking for me to be a cheerleader for them and tell them that everything is wonderful, when in fact they're getting in their own way. But on the flip side of that, not everybody needs to hear what you have to say unless they've asked you. And that takes pressure off of you as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you show up in a situation and people are venting, I wait for the question. And if they're not asking me something, I don't offer anything. Usually people are not looking for advice or solutions. They just want to feel seen and heard. And that just takes the pressure off, because the old me would try and jump in and try and help this person reach a solution, or I would try and problem solve because I was such a people pleaser. I wanted everybody to be happy, which is an unrealistic expectation. But it was also the perfect distraction for me not to look within and discover what might make me happy. I was too busy taking care of everybody else, and I used that as my excuse. But that resentment piece, then resentment showed up everywhere when I was in the habit of that behavior. I would feel resentful if I offered all of these solutions and ideas to this person and they wouldn't do them. I would sit there and think, gosh, I wasted all that time. I put forth so much effort. Well, the person never asked me. Then they're feeling resentful on the other side because they're experiencing that very thing. I never asked her for a solution. She clearly thinks she knows better than me, because that's what we're telling people when we jump in and try and problem solve and we haven't been asked. What you're really saying is, I don't think you can figure this out all on your own. It's not our intention, right? So I think they show up differently. Like with clients, well, they've stepped into change and they want you to hold a mirror to them. And the realistic part of that is, well, if you want change, you've got to own what's getting in your way. But on the other side, like at a family dinner table and nobody's asking me to problem solve, pressure's off. I'm not jumping in.
No, and less is more. And that's why I tell people it's not what I do. It's what I can allow you to do that you couldn't have done without my help.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's really your progress, your results. And where the rubber really meets the road is when you meet and you say, why are you doing this? And you lay it all out, so you have a little bit of a floor plan to say, well, this is going to take this long. This is going to take this much effort. This is the activities you're going to have to do. Because if someone's following your plan, it has to be your plan. Your plan can't change every minute or your conversation based on who you're talking to. It has to be, honest to what you believe in. And that way you're not compromising or accommodating or making someone feel good. I absolutely wouldn't make anybody feel bad. And I would actually end something earlier than later, knowing where it's going to end anyways. And I think then it takes responsibility and accountability and puts on their shoulders to say, hey, listen, you came in with this. You're going to walk away with this, and if it's not me, then who is it? And if it's not this commitment, then what is it? So eventually it's like, are you just putting off things that should be addressed? Or do you want to reassess what your intention and your goals are and minimize them and continue to do what you're doing? But it's like, you got to get balance. You got to get, because no one can help you if you're not honest. Go to a doctor and say your toe hurts instead of your finger. And how are they going to know it's not your toe because you told them,
Hmm.
And going back to doctors, so many times they tell you something and it's like, well, what does that mean? And until they say something, you don't know if it's bad or okay or whatever. But once they tell you, it sticks, right? And the same thing with anybody who you might be collaborating with. Once you say, this is what it is, then to your point, you've given up the responsibility anymore,
Hmm.
right? Of having to explain it. Or if someone says, I don't like it, I don't care for it, that's great. We got there early, right? Now we're both off on our own again.
Right, because not everything is a teachable moment. Sometimes people just want to be heard. They
Well,
don't need for us to jump in and say, well, do you know what I should think? Like when somebody says that to me, it's like a trigger. You know what you should do? I'm like, you know what you should do? Don't tell me anything else. I'm just sharing something that's bothering me.
well, and I think people need to respect people just as people and knowing that, I always believe meet somebody at their level.
Hmm.
Don't try to get them to your level and then talk to them, because then it seems a little bit overbearing, a little controlling, and a little disrespectful that you don't believe where they are is where they should be. So now
Yeah.
you've made another judgment and one judgment after another. And that
Mhm.
person isn't usually the person you say, I'm going to confide a lot of stuff to, because they don't really care to listen. They're just here to
Mhm.
tell. And no matter what I do, I'll probably never measure up, because at the end of the day, you start thinking, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in him. And now it's like I'm wasting time, money, and I'm got the same issue. So I was better off before even engaging, because at least I had more time and I wasn't committed to something. And and the good thing is you may talk 800 million people, but there's only a few really strong, in my opinion, visible practitioners. There's a lot of great practitioners, but ones don't get a lot of visibility on LinkedIn
Mhm.
because they're not into connecting, they're not into communicating, they're not into a lot of stuff. And that gives everybody the advantage who is vocal, because I
Yeah,
believe these LinkedIn Live broadcasts touch nerves more related to one's heart than one's brain.
I
There's
agree.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of broadcasts out there that you can get really smart and get all these strategies and get all these systems and processes. But is that what's going to make you feel better? Is that what's going to make you do better?
Mhm.
Most people are capable of about anything if they're given direction. And on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, said, you do this at 3, you do this at 4. Here's how you do posts. Okay, over time you could get it. But if you don't have that heart to heart, that's where you're going to get trusted long-term relationships, and more important, making money with people, not off of people,
Mm.
right? Making money for people and not off of people. And not even worry about making money, because if you do the best you can and you serve somebody, you've now identified your value and they felt it, and you did it in a way that they didn't have to stretch
Mhm.
or overextend themselves or fear risk. What they did is say, why am I so lucky? That this person's wanting to do this. And that's what your explanation has to be, right? Because I want to see how it works and then see the value, and then use somebody as a testimonial
Mhm.
to make
Yeah.
it happen. And the other thing is, I don't want to hurt anybody. If I can't help somebody, the last thing I want to do is make a financial challenge to them, a time challenge to them. If I can't bring value, I'm not bringing anything, or at least I'm not
Yeah.
taking anything away. So it's just like you take your car in the dealership and say it's like $6,000 worth of work, but I'm not going to touch anything until you tell me it's okay. So you're not out anything except you got
Mhm.
information. So if you go to work with the idea of service in mind, of helping other people who deserve it, and not because you choose who deserves it, because you want it to go to a happy home,
Mhm.
right? If you're bringing a lot of value, you want to see, like we talked about, ripple through the family. When someone says, and it happens all the time with other successes, well, I lost 40 pounds or I start doing 5 miles a day. And in 2 months, my family just saw a different me. I was awake. I was excited. I was what I used to be. And then they got better. So the same thing that duplicates one way duplicates the other. If you're the example, if you're the
Yes.
leader, if you tell somebody, look at what I'm doing, not you have to do this too. But, through inference, I always learned, and I know we got to lock it up. People would rather hear your story than you try to figure out their story.
Agreed. And there's nothing wrong with being a quiet leader either. You don't have to
Sure.
stand on the platform and say, hey, this is what I'm doing.
You're
You can
so
lead
right.
by example, and people might become curious enough to ask you, well, what is different? What are you doing differently? In which case you get to share.
Yeah, and here's
Right?
the thing is when I'm working with someone, it's their time.
Yeah.
It's all their time. And they should get their time first and the way they want it, because they're the person who you're serving. And at that point, because telling people, because I'm always trying to help my grandkids out. And one's doing this and one's doing that. Beautiful kids in every way. But one of them is gaining a little weight, just loves to eat, right? I mean, eat. At 10 o'clock, I'll have some more mac and cheese. It's like 10 o'clock, So anyways, it's easier for me to say, when I was your age, I was just like you. And I just love to eat, and then this is what happened. And I never go into, hey, here's what you should do, because I know at that point, now you're making someone feel worse, because one of the people they love the most is now having an issue with something they love the most, which is you're just going to create a conflict. What I learned is that people will do what they're going to do. The difference is either you'll find out about it beforehand or after.
Yep.
Right? Because if they trust you enough, they'll share with you. And if you don't go overreacting, it'd be, because there was times I can't go along with it, but hey, this is something you're going to have to learn on your own. So if you're going to do it, I'll pray for you.
Or you say nothing at all.
Yeah. And you have to walk away saying, I know I had to do it. And a lot of times I found they didn't do it when they found out they could do it.
Well, because it's not on their terms, maybe. Because that's the other thing, is we're all unique.
Well, some of it is to challenge you to see, will you do it? And when they get it, it's like, well, I really didn't want it,
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. But you know what? Then they're making a choice, for better or worse, they're making a choice, and they get to own it. You made I made the decision to have the piece of cake at 9 o'clock last night, knowing this is too much sugar and I'm not going to sleep. But I made the choice. It was nobody else's fault. I could have blamed the birthday person, right? Well, it's your fault for having a birthday. We had the cake so late, but I didn't do that. I decided this was me and this is why I'm awake.
Well, and there's always that person who loves eating cake at 10 o'clock at night, finds it's the best thing in the world. And in that case, it is.
Yeah. Do what works for you.
If it's only cake, compared to what other things it could be, it's like, have your cake.
Well, and whatever the case may be, you're still making a decision, whether it's cake or something else. You're making a decision. And if it's not serving you and you don't feel good after, switch it up.
Yeah. And here's the thing. You got to trust people to trust themselves, to see it for themselves. Well, sometimes you got to eat cake 3-4 times in a row. And then you say, I never want to eat that again. I'm just sick of it.
Maybe I should do that tonight and be tired again tomorrow.
Yeah, you never know.
Done.
Stretch yourself. But the key I found is it's easier. It's better for kids to learn earlier, because it lasts longer, the lesson, and it costs less when it's learned. Too many people, they've been protected, and all of a sudden they're 20-some, 30-some, and it's like they're lost, right? Because they never could make a decision on their own, or wouldn't be allowed to. So anyways, I know we go all over the place on the show. I want to thank the audience for being here, but it really does generate and expand a lot of things that one might be thinking, and now has some more context, perspective, and more importantly, gets to know Jenny and myself really well, to know what we're made of, what our beliefs are, what we want to achieve, which makes it easier for people to connect with us.
Mhm.
And having even prior videos that people can go back on if you like this. And a week ago, 2 weeks ago, we had one too. So anyways, want to thank everybody. Jenny, you want to say some closing words?
I just want to say thank you for having me on again, Don. I love coming on and speaking with you. And I would love to invite the audience today to be a little gentle with yourself. You're doing the best you can with what you have right in this moment, and that is okay, and it is enough.
Well, that's great, Jenny. And I would promote and advise everybody to get with Jenny if you're looking for someone who's sincere, who is really motivated and committed to helping others and doing it in a way that also is enjoyable along the journey. So anyways, want to thank you, Jenny, and I'm sure we'll have our next show. So talk to you again.